Peshtigo, Wisconsin, in the autumn of 1871, buzzed with the energy of a booming lumber town. Sawmills worked day and night, churning out timber for a rapidly expanding nation. The streets teemed with the laughter of children and the shouts of workers. Homes, shops, and taverns filled the landscape, standing as symbols of prosperity and growth. But beneath this facade of vitality lay a precarious truth. The beauty of the surrounding forests concealed a brewing storm, a fragile ecosystem primed for destruction. That year, the Midwest sweltered under a relentless drought. Summer brought excessive heat, drying the earth and raising the fear of fire to new heights. The usual lush greenery of autumn had turned to an alarming palette of browns and grays. The landscape had become a tinderbox. By October, conditions were dire. The ground was parched and moisture levels were alarmingly low. This was no ordinary year. The signs were unmistakable. Nature was ready to unleash chaos. The logging industry, while thriving, ignored the implications of its practices. Lumbermen left behind vast piles of debris, what they called slash, remnants of trees stripped bare, dry branches, and leaves hastily piled up and forgotten. These disposal sites created a perfect fire hazard, lying like lurking dragons, waiting for a single spark to ignite. Meanwhile, the local economy thrived on greed and haste, pushing loggers to ignore safety protocols about clearing out these dangerous piles. The hot, dry air sucked moisture from the very life out of the forest, leaving it ripe for catastrophe. As October approached, Peshtigo's residents remained blissfully unaware of the peril loomed just beyond their doorsteps. They believed in their good fortune, investing even more in the promise of wood and wealth. They turned a blind eye to the warnings of the season, convinced that modern technology and their relentless work ethic would protect them. But nature had its designs. On the evening of October 8th, the wind began to pick up, gaining strength with every gust. It stirred the embers left over from a nearby fire, a small blaze ignited by careless human error. In these dry, windy conditions, the fire quickly escalated, fanning out and consuming the surrounding landscape. The flames danced eagerly, seizing on the slash piles like moths to a flame. By nightfall, the town braced for the worst, but no one could fathom the catastrophe that was about to unfold. Peshtigo's residents were caught off guard. Communication failed them. The signals intended to warn the public of danger were lost in the chaos. Alarm bells rang too late, if at all, as the rapid spread of the inferno rendered traditional means of notification useless. What was meant to be a vibrant, thriving community quickly became a relentless battleground against the firestorm, urgently signaling a catastrophic failure of preparedness. As flames advanced, engulfing homes and lives, curiosity is piqued. Could this have been prevented? What stark failings in safety and communication dashed the hopes of Peshtigo that fateful night? With the arrival of dawn, the reality would settle in. Only a handful would survive to recount the horror of that night. In a town marked by greed and neglect, what would become of the memories left behind? As night fell on October 8, 1871, the moon cast a surreal glow over Peshtigo. But tranquility was about to shatter. Just after 7 p.m., a small fire ignited, an ember from a nearby lumberyard. In normal conditions, it would have been extinguished before it had a chance to spread. But the air was dry, the winds howling, and the conditions were ripe for disaster. Suddenly, that small spark transformed into a blazing inferno. Flames leapt into the sky, fanned by relentless winds, gusting at over 40 miles per hour. The weather, once a mere backdrop of rural life, became a vicious ally to the raging blaze. In minutes, the fire swallowed everything in its path, racing toward the town center with ferocious speed. Chaos erupted. People ran into the streets, shock and disbelief etched across their faces. Many gathered their children, desperately trying to outrun the flames that barreled down upon them. Eyewitnesses later described scenes of horror, neighbors engulfed in smoke, the frantic screeches of people caught in the inferno, and the sight of their homes disintegrating into ash. One survivor, still haunted by that horrific night, recounted the wild confusion. "I heard the crackling, and then I saw it. The sky was on fire." He was not alone. A woman reported seeing her neighbors disappear before her eyes as the flames consumed their homes. In mere moments, familiar streets turned into corridors of chaos and despair. Shouts of fire echoed through the night, but communication was nearly impossible amid the din of panic. The town lacked a fire department capable of combating such an unprecedented blaze, a tragic consequence of short-sighted economic decisions. Greed had driven down safety regulations, leaving Peshtigo vulnerable. The sudden acceleration of destruction made it impossible to organize a proper evacuation. The lumber industry's negligence had laid the groundwork for this catastrophe, and now the townspeople faced the consequences. Panic swept through every corner of Peshtigo as residents stumbled over one another in the dark, navigating the thick plumes of smoke that obscured vision and direction. Some jumped into the Peshtigo River, hoping to find refuge in its waters rather than face the flames. Others sought shelter in nearby barns, mistakenly believing they would be safe from the wrath of the fire. But in those critical moments, survival instinct clashed with colossal flames. As the lighthouse keeper of nearby Door County reported later, the town's glow lit up the night sky like a massive, hellish beacon. That night, the fire claimed more than homes. It obliterated families, dreams, and futures. By the time the flames finally slowed down, they had razed over 1,200 structures. The official death toll reached upwards of 1,500, with thousands more left homeless. For days following the fire, the ruins of Peshtigo told a silent yet deafening story of loss. And yet, amid the ashes, one question lingered. What if proper safety measures and communication had been in place? Would that night have ended differently? As stories of survival began to unfold, one of the most bewildering accounts emerged. Amid the tragedy, some claimed to have seen a strange flicker originating from the south, a harbinger that the chaos was not confined to Peshtigo alone. What was this shadowy threat, and could it be more than a fire? In the wake of the inferno, the town of Peshtigo lay in ruins, a haunting testament to the chaos of that fateful night. Official records estimated a staggering death toll between 1,500 and 2,500, making it the deadliest fire in American history. The intensity of the flames had reduced entire neighborhoods to smoldering ash within minutes. Homes that once stood proud, businesses bustling with life, and loved ones warming each other in the fall chill, all swept away in a catastrophe unimaginable in its fury. As dawn broke, it revealed not just devastation, but a ghost town. Over 1,200 structures, from quaint cottages to lumber mills, had vanished, leaving behind a blackened landscape. The sound of cracking timbers gave way to an eerie silence, punctuated only by the cries of the few who had survived. The Peshtigo River, once a source of life and commerce, became a grim refuge. Survivors huddled along its banks, clinging to the hope of rescue while grappling with the harrowing reality of what they had lost. The survivors faced an unfathomable challenge, rebuilding their lives amidst utter devastation. Homeless and grieving, they sifted through rubble, searching for remnants of what once was a family photo, a cherished trinket, a piece of history. The local population, once vibrant and brimming with potential, faced an uncertain future. The fire had obliterated infrastructure, leaving essential services crippled. Schools, churches, and stores were reduced to ash. The community faced not just physical displacement, but emotional and spiritual dislocation as well. In the months following the fire, assistance trickled in painfully slowly. As the news spread across the country, relief organizations began to respond, but help was inadequate compared to the immense needs of the grieving town. Most residents had lost everything, and those who survived experienced survivor's guilt. How could they rebuild when memories of that horrific night haunted their every thought? With winter approaching and basic necessities in scarce supply, temporary shelters were erected, providing minimal protection against the elements. The cherished bonds of community were tested as neighbors came together to support each other. Yet, the weight of loss was heavy. Each survivor carried their own burdens, their scars etched deep, both physically and emotionally. Despite the tragedy, a dark undercurrent ran through the aftermath. Investigations began. Questions emerged about the management of the forest lands, the culpability of timber companies, and the broader issues of fire preparedness and safety regulations. How could such a disaster occur with so many missed warnings? Communication had failed disastrously, and the greed of expansion had prioritized profit over preparation. Those in power had ignored existing fire safety protocols, and the repercussions were catastrophic. As the months rolled on, survivors struggled with painful questions. What could have been done differently? Who was to blame for the absence of preventative measures? With every attempt to secure funding for recovery came more questions about accountability and reform. It seemed the ghost of that fire continued to loom large, haunting not only the land, but also the very fabric of community trust. Would Peshtigo ever reclaim its spirit? Would the memories of that night transform into lessons learned, or would they fade into a historical footnote? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, waiting for the survivors to grasp them. The aftermath of the Peshtigo fire revealed a glaring breakdown in communication and preparedness. Local fire departments, overwhelmed by the ferocity of the flames, lacked the resources and coordination necessary to mount any effective response. Town officials underestimated the threat, blinded by greed as timber companies pushed to maximize profits without regard for safety regulations. When the firestorm struck, chaos reigned. Local fire alarms failed to relay critical warnings, leaving families and businesses unprepared. The booming timber industry had stripped the land of vital safeguards, creating a deadly environment ripe for disaster. In a matter of minutes, relentless flames overwhelmed firefighting efforts. Survivors recounted moments of sheer terror as they fled for their lives, yet in the chaos, help was slow to come. Neighboring communities, hearing of Peshtigo's devastation, rushed to aid the injured and displaced. Volunteers provided food, shelter, and essentials, but resources were limited. The scope of the tragedy exceeded anyone's imagination, leaving hundreds without basic provisions in the days following the conflagration. Meanwhile, as the embers cooled, the questions grew louder. How could such a catastrophe happen? Investigations followed, scrutinizing the contributions of local officials and the timber industry's role in exacerbating the disaster. Accountability became the driving force in conversations about reform. The Peshtigo fire sparked a nationwide reassessment of fire safety regulations. Policymakers recognized the need for stricter land management practices, including controlled burns and sustainable forestry methods aimed at preventing future calamities. In 1874, just 3 years after the disaster, Congress established the first forests under federal protection, marking a significant shift in how the government would approach land use and lumbering. Nationally, this tragedy shaped the landscape of fire response systems. States adopted more robust emergency protocols, leading to the establishment of fire departments that prioritize not just fighting flames, but also preventing disasters. Communities began to invest in fire breaks and controlled grazing to reduce the risk of another Peshtigo. Yet the scars of that fateful night lingered in the collective memory of Americans. Rebuilding Peshtigo would take years. Residents faced not just the challenge of reconstruction, but also the burden of loss. Families who had lived in the town for generations were displaced, their histories erased in a matter of hours. This personal devastation clashed with broader societal changes as new regulations emerged alongside a desperate need for healing. But the fire's legacy did not end there. As policies evolved, another question loomed larger. Could human beings ever truly manage nature's forces? Fire remains an integral part of many ecosystems, and mismanagement could lead to even greater disasters. In every discussion of fire safety that followed, an essential tension persisted: how to balance development, environmental stewardship, and public safety. The lessons of Peshtigo still resonate today. As we assess our resilience against natural disasters now, one critical question remains: are we truly prepared for the fires yet to come?